You might be a dental practice owner at home running your own Facebook ads, and it might be the case where you're not quite seeing the results that you want. Your Facebook ads are not leading to booked appointments, or your calendars is not getting filled, and you might be thinking to yourself, what am I doing wrong? Well, what I'm going to share with you now might be one of those things that it's potentially harming your ads from performing, and potentially making the ideal patient that you want to come to your clinic ignore your ads. You've probably heard that saying where it says, a confused mind will always say no. Now I'm going to break that down, what I mean by that. Oftentimes when I go onto Facebook ad library, when I do audits for dental practices, I'll see a specific ad. So I'll see one ad, but in that one ad, they're talking about composite bonding, they talk about veneers, they're talking about Invisalign or teeth whitening in just one ad. But let's break it down and think about from the customer's view. When they're going through Facebook and they see that people only care about the solution that will help them with the goal that they're trying to achieve. So if somebody wants to do Invisalign, they won't care about veneers. If somebody wants to do veneers, they won't care about composite bonding. So the rule is, you talk about one message or one offer, and you talk to one type of patient archetype. So if you have a offer for composite bonding, only address people that would be interested in composite bonding. Don't be talking to people about veneers and people about teeth whitening or implants, because think about you. If you wanted your teeth fixed and you have a certain outcome that you want, you wouldn't care about the other solutions. You care about that one solution that's gonna get you the result that you want. So the proper way is to, you have composite bonding, that's all you talk about in the ad, and you talk about nothing else, because people don't have the time and then the brain capacity to then go and search out and try to find and decipher what you actually mean in your ads. And think about Facebook. Facebook is a social platform, so people are not on there looking for a solution. They are looking for entertainment. They're scrolling, stalking their exes, looking at cute pics of dogs, liking their neighbors' pictures, whatever people do on Facebook nowadays, I don't know. So with that being said, you have to be focused and specific in what you're offering. And when you follow the rule of one, it makes your messaging so much easier to understand. If you see at the top of the page, it says kill confusion, become the obvious choice. And that's what it's all about. It's not about being the best practice. Of course, you should strive to be the best practice, but the practices that actually do bits and actually scale and make a lot of money, a lot of revenue, are the ones who make whatever they're saying, their messaging, their offer easy to understand, and they make the steps very easy and effortless. So the less cognitive load or cognitive strain you reduce or take away from your messaging to make it as clear as possible, the better it will be for the person that's reading it. If I'm gonna make another point of, think about when you're on social media like TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, the context changes every time. So when somebody swipes, every video is going to be like a different video about something else. So the context is always changing. So if you are throwing multiple things at somebody, they're not going to actually grasp as to what you're trying to get them to engage in. So the purpose of the rule of one is to be specific in what you're talking about. So if you know you're going to advertise for composite bonding, just talk about composite bonding. So it's just one avatar you're talking to with one type of message, one type of emotion that you're trying to evoke from that messaging, one offer, and then one simple call to action. So you break it down. You don't try to ask for too much too soon, because that's how people get overwhelmed and confused, and then that's how you see resistance in whatever you're trying to get them to do. I'm going to give you a little story about what I read about Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, where he was very involved in the advertising that went out when he was alive and working at Apple as a CEO. And he was in a room with the advertising director, Lee Clow, and that man was responsible for all the advertising that went out in that era when Apple was at the top of their game. And Jobs was like, yeah, we can talk about this benefit, we can give them that benefit, we can talk about. So he was just reading off benefits, and Lee Clow, obviously, he's knowledgeable in advertising and know how the human mind works and how people buy, like the science behind why people buy. Instead of trying to say, no, that's not going to work, what he did, which I thought was genius because he was very concrete, and Jobs got it instantly when he done it. So he crumpled up 5 bits of paper and he threw it at Jobs all at once, and Jobs caught none of them. And then he crumpled up 1 piece of paper, threw it to Jobs, even Jobs, and then he caught it. And then he's like, there you go. When you're talking about messaging, when you're trying to get people to listen, people won't remember multiple topics or multiple ideas, but they'll remember one. So whatever messaging you have, try to condense it down to the simple idea of just one thing, and that will make people remember. If you remember, for example, one of the ads that was genius that Apple done was 1,000 songs in your pocket. How genius is that? Because instead of like reading off all the benefits and X, Y, and Z, they just condensed it into one simple core idea. So that's the importance of the rule of one. The reason why I'm talking about these things that I don't see a lot of, for example, a lot of agency they don't make content like this to educate practice owners, because practice owners are first practitioners. They're not marketing people. So when you don't know the fundamentals, you're always going to be at a deficit in terms of what you're producing. So if you want to take one thing away from this video, is that a confused mind always says no. So in your messaging, talk to one avatar, with one message, one offer, and one call to action. That's how you get through to people. I practice what I preach, because there's so many other things that I could speak to you about in terms of the fundamentals of making sure your advertising gets seen. I can talk about the 5 stages of awareness. I can talk about the platform in terms of Facebook is a social platform. But if I gave you like 3-4 sort of fundamental principles of what it means to run ads, not even just Facebook ads, but advertisement by itself, you probably wouldn't even remember one of them, because I'm just bombarding you with information, which is why I just gave you one example or one principle that you can leave here with and remember. Every time you're writing your ads, just talk to one person, one archetype, and with one message, one offer, and one call to action. And that alone will set you far amongst all the other dental practices that's just throwing everything at people and hoping something stick. If you try to appeal to everyone, you will appeal to nobody. So people are busy. They don't have time to be going out and searching for what you mean and searching for the right solution. You have to bring the context, and you have to be specific in who you're talking to. So they say, oh, this is for me, or this looks interesting. Let me try to see or learn more. So remember, rule of one, and a confused mind will always say no. If you want me to have a look and go through your ads and do an audit, then comment obvious in the comment section below, and I'll reach out. I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.